People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
You know, recently I was digging in my drawers looking around for some old shit, and I sat down and looked at the socials for a little while, and I realized that the Intellivision is coming back. No, not the fucking Tommy Tallarico one. No, the actual Intellivision. And it kind of seems like an afterthought because Atari is making it, and they recently made the Atari 2600 Plus and 7800 Plus that lets you put the actual cartridges in there. But the new one isn't gonna let you do that. You have to load games through a USB port. Why would they do that? Was the cart slot too expensive to make or something? Did they think not enough people would buy it? Or could they not make any emulators that worked with a cart slot or something? I don't know. What I do know is it's $150 fucking dollars. For that kind of money, I want it to play my old Intellivision carts, dude. So what if it comes with 45 games if you can put more games in it? Dude, do you know you could get like a bulk lot of Intellivision games for like 20 bucks? Besides, there's only one reason anybody wants this game anyway, and it's because of
Mattel Electronics presents Space Con.
Has anybody ever actually played the game? It sucks, like really bad. But anyway, let's go on to the subject of the video. This new Intellivision coming out got me thinking about my Intellivision flashback I bought at a pawn shop for 15 bucks. I know it's not worth that anymore, but back when I bought it, nobody wanted the thing. And I also started thinking about, couldn't you just buy a real Intellivision and some games and be less in the hole than buying that thing?
No.
Because like 99.9% of the Intellivisions on eBay don't work. And if they do, people want 10 prices for them. They've always got something wrong, like either the controller doesn't work, it won't read a cartridge, or the cartridge slot is kind of finicky, or maybe the capacitors are blown up or something like that. There's always something wrong with them. And you know it don't work too because of what they put in the title. Untested as is. Parts are not working. Power light comes on. C-Pix read. You know it's a shitty game console when more than half of the consoles on eBay say that in the title. And you can make a song out of it. Untested as is. Parts are not working. Power light comes on. C-Pix read description. No refunds, no return. I don't have the cables. I'm not gonna spend $5 on a cable, even though this thing would be worth $200 if it fucking worked. Anyway, that's a rant for another day. There's a lot of people that want to get into retro games and retro consoles and stuff like that. Even though 2025 is kind of the year of poverty, people still want to find ways to like have some fun in life, you know, by buying the real consoles, playing the real games, because sometimes emulation is just too finicky to deal with for some people. And you get that happy little feel-good yee feeling of playing the real thing on a real cartridge, on a real CRT. Trust me, it feels good. There's nothing like it. But there are consoles out there that, in my personal opinion, are not worth buying, and you're better off just emulating it. And this is coming from a guy who's an original hardware nerd that has a big game collection and a big console collection. I have gotten a lot of consoles that don't work. I have gotten a lot of consoles that I fixed, and they're still not right. And I know what you should buy and what you shouldn't buy. And some stuff I have never bought because I already know you should never buy it. So this is what this video is going to be about. Here are 10 game consoles you should never ever buy because they break. There are some obvious ones out there that you probably already know about, and that's the ones I'm going to start with. And as I go through the list, we're going to get more and more obscure. So if you're going, duh, Stu, we already know that. Everybody knows that. Well, duh, that's why I said it's the most obvious one. I wasn't going to start the list with the Fairchild Channel F. How about you Fairchild Channel fuck yourself? Number 10, you know it, I know it. Let's all say it together. The Xbox 360 launch version. If Superman 64 would have been Superman 360, those would have been red rings of death he'd be flying through. Everybody knows this story. They rushed this thing out. They didn't put good thermal paste on it. They didn't give it a good enough cooling system, and the thing would get hot and it would red ring. It would burn up its own GPU. That's what happened to mine. Mine actually started smoking and tried to catch fire. You want to know what I was trying to play? Fallout New Vegas. I am convinced that Fallout New Vegas melted my 360. Todd Howard, you owe me an Xbox. Nah, screw it. All I'd play is Saints Row 1. Funny enough, you'll still see some of them out there on eBay that still work because they have low hours on them. But should you buy one? If you want to sit it on the shelf and never use it for the rest of your life, yeah. If you just want it as a display thing, I would never, ever, ever, ever use it. Now, you probably ask, well, could you put good thermal paste on it and then use it? Maybe, but I wouldn't try it. Besides, the Launch 360 isn't that great anyway. For one thing, it doesn't have an HDMI port. Have you ever looked at the back of one? No, it doesn't have one. But only the Launch Edition, though. The later versions where they made the better motherboard, like the Xenon motherboard and those kinds of 360s, they did have the HDMI port. So if you've ever seen a white 360 with no HDMI port, now you know why. With that said, if you just have to have a 360 that looks like the Launch Edition model, you can get a Xenon motherboard or a Jasper chip or any of the other 360s that had the better motherboards. Try to get the newest one you possibly can because it's going to have the best revisions and the better cooling system, and those will probably be fine. And if it still has the Blades dashboard and has never been updated, please, for the love of God and all game preservation, leave it be. Never update it. Don't put it on the internet or anything. Just leave it be. Or you can mod it, because when you mod it, you can put the Blades dashboard back on it. And now you can mod a 360 without having to solder, so that's great. Also, if you have a CRT TV, even the Xbox 360 Slim can take a component cable or a composite cable. So if you want to hook your 360 to a CRT, you most definitely can do that and play your OG Xbox games the way they are supposed to look. Let me know how you enjoy Ninja Gaiden Black. Pour one out for my man. Also, the removable faceplates were cool. Number 9, let's get this one out of the way, because if I don't talk about it, this isn't a broken consoles list. The PlayStation 3 Fat. But to make this video worth your while, I'm going to throw something else in this. The Super Slim. The Super Slim sucks. You would think that the newest, latest revision of a PS3 would be the most reliable one, but in my experience, I bought a PS3 Super Slim brand spanking new from Walmart, and it only lasted a month before it would overheat or stop playing games altogether. Sometimes it would play a game and glitch out so much I couldn't even play it. I don't know what happened to that thing, but it just would not work after a month or two. If you had a good experience with your Super Slim, or your Super Slim still works, tell me, because mine didn't work very good. Because I don't know what was wrong with it, but it sure did not work good. But if yours works good, I want to know. I got my Slim that I've got right now used at a pawn shop for probably $60 or so, and that was like, I don't know, like 10, 12 years ago, and it still works just fine. In fact, I hacked it with a new version of PS3 Hen here recently, and man, it is so much fun to play native PS1 in HD and stuff like that. And you can still hook this thing to a CRT as well. If you use a PC CRT, you could do higher resolutions on it than like 480i. You can do 480p and 720p. It might be letterboxed, but it'll work. I've got a Dell CRT that can go up to 1600 by 1200, so it can handle a lot of modern consoles. And man, that thing is so fun. I use an HD to VGA cable to get it to work. But that's if you're a moron like me. Now let's talk about the PS3 Fat. Now everybody knows this one. Same deal as the 360. They rushed it out. They put way too many pieces of hardware and software in that thing that was just very rushed out. They didn't think of like how the cooling system could work, and they put really cheap thermal paste on it, and sometimes no thermal paste at all. In some cases, some people have opened up their consoles and found no thermal paste at all. And you'll know when it's on its way out too, because that fan will sound like a top fuel dragster about to take off. Rev up your engines! On top of everything else, if you find one on eBay that actually does work, you've got the damn cooling system to worry about, and you're gonna pay 10 prices for it. You could probably buy 3 or 4 PS3 Slims for what a fat PS3 with backwards compatibility costs. If you buy this thing, expect to open it up, put new thermal paste in it, and drill a fuck ton of holes in the case, and maybe put an extra fan on it, maybe replace the old fan with a new fan. Don't buy one of those Nyko cooling fans they used to sell in the 2000s. Some of those were actually wired the wrong way, so it was blowing hot air back into the console. If you want to get cheap about it, you could get one of those laptop coolers with the built-in fans. The USB port on the front will probably power that thing. Fans won't go very fast, though. And you know what? Sometimes it may be too late. The motherboard may already be weak and on its way out by the time you do all that. Some people say that the only thing you can really do to make sure that the PS3 Fat is going to last a long time is to actually take a motherboard out of a PS3 Slim and Frankenstein it onto the motherboard of a PS3 Fat. So you've got like a Franken console that's both one thing and another thing. So that means you gotta buy two consoles and put them together. Oh my God! A used PS2 Slim is sounding pretty good right now. Besides, the PS2 compatibility isn't that great to begin with anyway. You know why? Because some of the PS2 games have input lag or compatibility issues with the PS3. And if you have the 80 gig model that does software emulation, some games just don't damn work. I cannot punch it into your head enough. Don't buy a PS3 Fat. Number 8. This one's a little less obvious, but it's more recent too. The Nintendo Wii U. Yeah, you've probably heard how you can hack this thing and it can play Wii games and GameCube games natively. Even though it can't play the GameCube discs, it can still play the ROMs. I'm sorry, ISOs, Mr. OCD. What kind of Coke do you want, Dr. Pepper? What Nintendo do you own, a Sega? Fuck you! So what's wrong with the Wii U? Well, other than being the Wii U, it has faulty RAM chips. And guess what happens? There's some kind of glitch in the system, in the RAM chips, that if the console is not turned on frequently, it will actually corrupt the RAM so bad that the Wii U will never turn on again. The Nintendo Wii U dies from doing absolutely nothing. So there's a lot of Wii U's on eBay that don't work, and there's people that will just straight up sell half of a Wii U, not realizing that you need both parts. It is such a... pisses me off. I would say it's to the point to where if they don't have a picture of the Wii U turning on a TV, I wouldn't buy it. But I wouldn't buy it either way, because there's no way in hell people are going to remember to turn on their Wii U every now and then. I can't remember to go to the what? I think I better change my pants. And what if you have to put your Wii U in storage? What are you gonna do then? Have like a battery that turns it on every now and then? What? I can't believe there exists a game console that will fry itself by literally doing nothing. Way to go, Nintendo. Hey, how's the Switch 2 going, by the way? I need to finish my video about that. You know, at least with the NES, if you screwed around with it enough, you could get it to work. And they did finally fix it with the top loader. But I guess the Wii U was such a catastrophic failure that they were just like, let's just cut our losses, let's just switch it up. And hey, the Switch is fine as long as you don't put it on some Wish.com dock. It's not a big fan of docking, unlike some of you. When I say docking, I mean this, not that. Now we get into the more interesting stuff. Number 7, the original Game Boy. Don't get it, you don't want one. I'm talking the big gray brick that had Tetris with it. Nah, don't get that, you don't want it. Because if you get one, you're replacing the screen. No and, if, or, but, nothing like that. You're replacing the screen. I know about putting the soldering iron on the contacts, blah, blah, blah. That only works about half the time, and sometimes you blow it up doing that. And even if it did work, oh my God, that screen was so awful. And the son of a bitch drains batteries like a Hitachi magic wand meant for an elephant pussy. And now I know what you're saying. Well, just put a better screen on it. Yeah, you could do that. You could most definitely do that. In fact, they make some where you don't even have to solder, so you can do it yourself. But here's the problem. There's a reason Nintendo did not put a screen with a light there, because it makes it drain the battery even more now. You ever heard of the Sega Game Gear and the Atari Lynx? You probably haven't heard of that, but that's okay. Wish they would have called it the Atari Bobcat. It could have been Dixie's console. But both of those had color LCD screens with a light. And ask anybody that's owned them how long the batteries last. Probably about 30 minutes, if that. Guys, I need to break character for a moment. I turned this thing on and booted Tetris up just because I wanted to see how bad the screen was, and you can see, yeah, it's real bad. It's real bad. But there's just enough that you can still play Tetris. And I sat here and played this until a 1 popped up on the lines thing. So that only tells me that I played until I got 100 lines and then died. So I played the best game of Tetris I have ever played in my life, picking this thing up to do this video and do B-roll. So, yeah. Here's my Game Boy right here. I got this in the year of our Lord 1995 when I was 5 years old. And yes, it needs a new screen. And I did have to replace the battery cover because those always break. Now, there is one exception to this rule. If for some reason you still want this thing and you still want to put a backlit screen on it and all that, if you still want to live with this thing, I tell you what you do. Get the power supply. They made power supplies for these things where you can plug them into the wall. Now you don't have to worry about batteries. Plus, most of the time you're going to be playing this in your house anyway. Like, who cares? Or if you want to be a mega giga chat about it, get you a big-ass battery pack and plug the power supply into that. Believe it or not, that was a thing. They actually did make battery packs for the Game Boy even back then. Or you could get those AA batteries that have the USB ports on them so you can recharge them. I guess you could do that. And I'm sure somebody has a rechargeable battery mod for them out there too. So there's things you can do, but then you start talking into some money. How much money do you want to spend on the old gray brick? And then you start getting into, like, is it even the old gray brick anymore? You've replaced half the shit on it except the shell. It becomes that ship that left the harbor, a used ship, and came back brand new. If you really want that form factor and you want to be able to play cartridges, just get the Game Boy Color. There's backlit screens for it too. It only takes 2 batteries and they last a lot longer than the old gray brick. What I did is I got a modified Game Boy Advance with a brick with a backlight. And recently, I got this adapter that you put on the back of it that lets you put it on a CRT TV, and it sucks. I'll have to talk about it one day. Number 6, I have done a lot of reviews on old, like, British computers and stuff like that. You know, I talk about the C64, the Amiga, the ZX Spectrum, and stuff like that over the years. So I wanted to put at least one computer on this list, and that computer has got to be the Commodore 64. If you're a moron like me and are interested to know how bad these things really are, they're so bad they don't work. There is a reason that like 90% of the ones on eBay are like untested or not working, like the song we did earlier. These things will break if you look at them funny. I have a Commodore 64. I bought it in 2020, and guys, I am here to tell you, and I am proud to say this, that in the 5 years that I have owned this Commodore 64, it has never, ever turned on and played a single game. I have replaced the power supply, I have replaced chips, I have replaced the video cables, I have replaced so much, and this son of a bitch still does not want to work. All I get is a black screen. Black like the gigantic void in my bank account. Here are one of the many reasons you should never buy a Commodore 64. For one thing, the original power supplies are now dangerous to use. Yes, you heard me. The capacitors are now overvolting the power supply, so it puts too much voltage to the Commodore and will actually fry the chips in it. So whatever was wrong with my C64 to begin with, now it's got fried chips. Fried chips. And you know what? Just the computer world, as far as retro computers, old computers, it's a different type of people selling those anyway. Most of the people that's selling them don't know anything about them, don't even know how to turn them on half the time. They found it up in their uncle's attic. They said, oh, I get some money off of this thing. I wonder if it'll turn on. They'll turn on that old Commodore power supply and kill the thing and put untested on the listing. That's a funny way to spell don't fucking work. You need to buy a Commodore from somebody that knows Commodore shit, and if they do, they want like $400 or $500 for the shit, and 9 times out of 10 they're in the UK because they're the only people that give a fuck about this thing. It's all worth it to play Flimbo's Quest, where you fucking press up to jump, and it has the world's worst controls, but hey, the music sounds like this. You thought I made that name up, didn't you? Nope, there's a game actually called Flimbo's Quest. So if you're one of the few unlucky people that own a Commodore 64 and it doesn't work, because of course it doesn't, just put a Raspberry Pi in it and call it a day. Or you can buy that C64 Maxi thing. That's almost the same thing. Hope you like getting rid of $300 fucking dollars. There's also that company that's making a real deal Commodore 64 that actually has all the real stuff in it and actually works with all the cartridges and games and all that shit like that. And they actually bought the rights to Commodore, and some of the original people from the original company are working there now. But, you know, it's a YouTuber that owns it now, so I'm just kind of waiting to see how that goes out. see if anybody actually gets this computer in their hands before I actually say anything about it, before I actually, mess with it at all. Because it is $350, but when you think about it, the real C64 was like $600 back in the 80s, so it's technically cheaper now? Also, there's a guy that works for them that apparently did some fucked up shit. I just wanted to put that out there before somebody says that in the comments. Number 5, the TurboGrafx-CD. Now, there's not as many dead TurboGrafx CDs out there as there are the other stuff, but I thought I would put this in here because there is some problems with these things, and you should probably know about it before you actually put some money into that. There's a lot of different variants of the TurboGrafx-CD. There's the American version, then there's the PC Engine CD, and there's a couple of different versions of that one. There's also the Duo consoles, and there was an updated version in Japan called the Duo R, and I will talk about that one. Now, what's cool about the TurboGrafx-CD is that if you want to, you can make your own game copies out of blank CDs and put them in the game, and they will actually work. There's no copy protection on these things. So if you can't put out the whole bunch of money that Ys 1 and 2 costs for the TurboGrafx-CD, you can do that. But here's the problem. A lot of these consoles were very finicky, and they're getting really old, and they're starting to die. The main thing that dies is the CD drives, especially on the CD consoles that plug into the original TurboGrafx or PC engines. The disk drives tend to die, the lasers tend to die, the belts throw, all that kind of stuff, because they're getting really old at this point, and this was like really early technology at the time. But the main thing that kills them is the capacitors, and we've talked about capacitors before. The capacitors that NEC and Hudson Soft used for the PC Engine and TurboGrafx CDs, and the Duos as well, came from a manufacturer that made the capacitors that weren't very good, and those particular capacitors seemed to die earlier than the ones from another company that they used. And because of that, a lot of those CD consoles are dead now. Not as many as the PS3 and 360, but there's a lot of them. That said, the PC Engine Duo R had different capacitors in it from the other CD consoles, and it seems to have a better track record. You see a lot more of those still working, because a lot of them, even though the capacitors are still old, they've held up. So a lot of those consoles still work. Now, granted, this is a console from 1989 or so at some point it's gonna need recapping. But there's Atari 2600s out there from 1977 still working, so what do I know? But my thing is, I don't think they're worth the money people are asking for, with the fact that they're pretty fragile and they can go bad. And if they do go bad, you're gonna have to recap it or get somebody to do it for you, because I'm sure that 99.9% of the people watching this don't own a soldering iron and don't plan to get one. When you see somebody with a soldering iron, it's like they have Thor's hammer. They have some kind of magical superpower, you know? I can solder, but only on car audio stuff. I can solder speakers together, that's about it. You put me at a circuit board, I'm like, So there's no way in hell I'm replacing capacitors. I would suggest, if you're gonna spend the fuck ton of money it costs to get into TurboGrafx shit, get one of those analog Duos, because that's a brand new CD drive, and it still does not have the copy protection, so you can still do that little trick. I've heard people say that the EverDrives don't work on those things. They do, you just have to know how. Plus, they have an SD card slot, so don't worry about it. If you want to play it on a CRT, get a VGA monitor. There you go, you're done. But whatever you do, don't buy the TurboGrafx Mini. For the love of God, what is wrong with people? It's old cell phone hardware with an emulator on it, bruh. Much as I love my NES Classic and SNES Classic, I still think they're only worth about $20, $30. I paid $20 brand spanking new for my fucking PS Classic, and that's all it's fucking worth. Even though now you can play Duck Station with it instead of that crappy emulator that it had. In fact, there's a non-crappy version of that same emulator that you can use on there now. But I digress. Get like a broken PC engine and put a Raspberry Pi in it. Here we go with the Raspberry Pi shit again. Yeah, I mean, it's just so easy to do, dude. It's just a little bitty little chip, and you put a USB drive with RetroPie on it. It's done. You're fucking done. I'm planning to build one for my car that plays Atari games. I'm not joking. If a dumbass Louisiana hick can do it, you can do it. Number 4. Here's one a lot of us older guys know about, the PS2 Fat. Now, I'm gonna be real, because people are going to bring this up. If you mod the PS2 Fat, then it doesn't matter that everything's broke on it. But if you want this to play real discs, no. For those of you who have never owned owned a PlayStation 2 Fat before? For one thing, the cooling fan is kind of loud sometimes. Sometimes it makes... Mine used to make a whole bunch of noise, like a clicky noise, like a kind of noise. That one stopped reading discs, as they all do, and the one that I have currently also has problems reading discs, but it still plays. These are different in the fact that you don't often see them not working at all. Most of the times what happens is the CD drive dies, the laser stops working, or the CD drive just stops going back and forth, like the belt dies or the motor dies in it, so the CD drive won't come out. You can tell if the CD drive has stopped working at some point because the front plate on the disc drive will be broken off from somebody trying to take a screwdriver and pull it out. What we used to do back in the day is if the console wouldn't read the disc, we would take the thing apart and then take a cotton swab and put some alcohol on the laser. And sometimes that would work, and it would work for a little while after that. But after a while, it would start doing it again. I remember some people said something about there was a little, trim pot inside the laser that you could turn to make it more powerful, but you could actually turn it too powerful and it would actually ruin the disc you were playing or something like that. I never did do that, but I have heard people doing that. But most of the time, people just started replacing the laser. And the lasers that are like the replacement ones that you buy on like Wish or Temu or wherever you get them from right now, they're kind of spotty quality. Sometimes they'll work okay, but then they might die within like 6 months to a year, and then you got to replace it again. And yeah, that gets old after a while. Sometimes you can take an old Sony one that's still good and replace it with that, but those are starting to get scarce that still work, and they're going to have the same problem after some time anyway, because they've got the same problems to begin with. So, yeah, PS2 Fat, it's a no-go. That said, if you don't care about playing the physical copies of games, or you have physical copies and you have a way to back them up or something like that, what you can do is get one of those SD card reader memory cards to put on the front, and then you can just load the ISOs into it. I've done that with my PS2 Slim, and man, it works so good. The loading time is just perfect. The loading time's about the same as the real game, and sometimes it's faster. It depends on how good of an SD card you have. Yeah, I know, micro SD, but the grammar Nazi should be gone now, so I'm saying SD. And of course, there's the hard drive mod on the PS2 Fat, where you can put like a big 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte hard drive in the back of that son of a bitch, and then have as many games as you freaking want. I've done that before, but sadly my hard drive died. I don't know if it was the PS2 that corrupted it or something like that, or maybe it was a bad hard drive, but it just completely stopped working. I can't even get it to pop up on my PC anymore. It's just dead. Next time I'll probably do an SSD just because they're more reliable. It won't make the load times better, but it will still be less likely to die because you moved the damn thing or something. But the PS2 Fat is one of those deals where it's not really capacitors or overheating or anything like that that kills them. It's mostly the drive goes out on them. So if you want to play physical discs on a PS2 Fat, you're kind of out of luck. Plus, I just love the PS2 Slim in general anyway. They're always more reliable. They take up less space. You know, I just like them a lot more. The only thing I like about the PS2 Fat is it uses one of those generic power cables you can buy at Walmart for it. The PS2 Slim has an external power supply, so you have to buy a power supply that's specific to it. I've heard you can use adapters to use that power supply with other game consoles, and it will work. There's a whole ass video on how to do that safely, but I've never tried it myself. Now, I promised you some obscure bullshit. Now, let's get on to that. Number 3 is going to be bootleg consoles. Dicks out for Dindy, boys. Anything that has a name like Happy Magical Super Wonderful Mario Game Console? No, please, dear God, don't do that to yourself. If you think America has made some junky game consoles, let me tell you something. If you go to a country that has no rules about build quality or quality assurance or anything like that, oh, let me tell you something. Those Famiclones could get pretty damn dangerous, and I know that firsthand. I used to do a stream segment called Famiclone Friday, where I would buy these old bootleg game consoles that would pop up on flea markets. Some of them were had cart slots, and some of them had cartridges built into them, and some of them had bootleg Famiclone cartridges with them. The wackiest one I own is an N64 controller that has a Famicom and a light gun built into it. And we had a lot of fun doing that. We would find stuff like 999999999 and we would find like the classics like Samari and that one Jackie Chan game where it has Mario's face chopped over Jackie Chan. We never did find Granddad, and I wish we would have, but we probably never will now because I think I'm not going to do that anymore because of one thing that we actually got on video. This is the Super Joy 3. It kind of looks like that thing that I just showed you that was a Famicom with a light gun built into it. Well, this was like the budget version of that thing. Let's think about this for a minute. This is the cheapo, budget, entry-level version of a Chinese bootleg console. I was just begging to have my house burnt down. And there was one rogue little capacitor in there that decided that's what they wanted to do. And it happened on stream. Here it is. Cool story, bro. Anyway. Turn off. Oh boy. That's not good. Oh fuck! Ah! Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. Guys? Did it burst into flames? Yes, it did. It started smoking. Oh my fucking god. I wish I could have gotten the look on my face when I had this thing in my hand that was just boiling smoke out of every orifice. It actually took like a second for my mind to register what was happening, and then when I did, I'm just like, fuck! So once we had unplugged it and assured that it was not going to harm anybody, I took it apart, and yeah, it was a little capacitor in there that had swelled up and burned up and started smoking. I had used a power supply that had worked just fine on my other Famicom bootlegs and my NESs as well, but apparently this one may have been wired some kind of different way or something. Maybe the polarity was different, but I don't know what happened, or it was just a piece of fucking shit. I mean, it is like the budget version of a budget console, but like, damn, that stream almost became a live leak. I could see my buddy Savox making a video about, as Stuart streamed, the console began smoking, the smoke became fire, and you can hear his anguish and pain as he burned to death live on stream, while the chat all said, lol, Cajun fried. If I see you in hell, I'm gonna kick your ass! Number 2, now if anybody has watched Angry Video Game Nerd, you already know what's coming. The Atari Jaguar CD. This bad boy, and I do mean bad, is so horrible that you are very lucky to find one that still works nowadays, and it's all in the design. They had designed this proprietary format for the CDs that made it to where it was harder for people to make pirate copies of Jaguar CD games. But because of the way the CD is designed, the drive does a lot less error checking than it needs to, and because of that, it's very sensitive, and it can actually error out extremely quickly, especially when that sucker starts to go. So if it's already got a weak laser to begin with, then it's going to be even more sensitive than a PS2 Fat with a weak laser. That's why when AVG and his friend soldered the CD straight to the console, it still didn't work, because it was the Jaguar CD itself that was bad. He had the right idea though, because the cartridge slot is also very sensitive, and it doesn't help that it doesn't have a dust cover at all. The Jaguar CD, it came out at a time when they realized they had lost. They realized they were just losing the gaming community altogether, and the Jaguar CD was a last-ditch effort to try to keep this thing alive. And you know how many games they made for that thing? 11. 11 games. Some of them were ports of existing games. For several years, we had good Atari Jaguar emulators, but we never had good Jaguar CD emulators. Mostly because of the fact it's so hard to find hardware that still works, and there's not that many people lining up to play 11 games. But then again, the PC Engine Super Graphics only had 5 games? 5? Am I right? And it's emulated, but now we finally have a Jaguar CD emulator, and it's called Big Pimu. It is said to play every single Jaguar game under the sun, including the CD games. So there, you don't have to go find a Jaguar CD anymore. And apparently there's an emulator for the Mr. FPGA hardware being worked on right now to make it to where you can do hardware emulation of the Jaguar CD. We'll see how that goes. And now the honorable mentions. Now, you know I gotta do honorable mentions because, you know, we gotta do the ones that just did not make the list for number 1. And truth be known, I gotta pad this son of a bitch out. But I gotta make sure I don't make this too long because people will think this is another stream VOD. Ugh! The Sega Game Gear, with every single one you find needing brand new capacitors at some point or else they're gonna be dead. The Sega Dreamcast, with the fact that if you have it turned on and you pull the controller out of it, sometimes it can blow a fuse and stop working. The Philips CDI was almost number 1 because sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. It's really random. But the thing that all of them have is there's a chip inside them that has the save battery integrated into it, so saves do not work ever. You have to replace that whole chip or the save battery within it, and it always requires somebody who knows what they're doing. The original Xbox had motherboards that would have a leaky clock capacitor that would ruin the entire motherboard if it leaked. But they did fix that in 1.6, and if you catch it really early, you can just take some pliers and pull the clock capacitor out, and you're fine. Who gives a fuck about the clock anyway? Suck my clock. The Ouya, you can't even use it anymore unless you hack it because the servers are down. I bet you weren't expecting me to talk about the Ouya, but there you go. The Google Stadia is just a controller now. The Alienware Alpha Steam Machine. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. Here's number 1. You're not ready for this. I bet you don't even know what this is. But it was made in the USA by a company you're probably aware of. You probably know the console that this is based on. The Coleco Adam computer.
What?
Now, what the hell is that? The short version is, it's a ColecoVision that was turned into a computer. It can still play ColecoVision games, but it also can take tapes, it can have a keyboard, and it can do a bunch of other crazy shit. Coleco had it in their mind that the ColecoVision wasn't just going to be a console, it was going to be a platform, a system, so you could put a whole bunch of add-ons onto it. You probably know about the Atari 2600 add-on that they made, where they reverse engineered an Atari 2600 without using any of the original chips from the 2600 and made their own. Atari did sue them, but they settled out of court with the promise that they could put their Atari games on the ColecoVision and vice versa, and that was the birth of multi-platform games. And that's also how we got that crappy version of Donkey Kong on the 2600. You know that one that you always hear the sound effects of it on TV shows all the time? But they also had this steering wheel attachment, and you also had the Adam computer. The ColecoVision could be used as the brain of the Adam computer. It could play ColecoVision games, stuff on tape, it could do BASIC, it could do all the computer stuff. And it very well could have been, at the time, the worst computer ever made. Let me explain. It was made very poorly. And for one thing, the power supply was in the printer. You had to have the printer or else you couldn't turn the computer on. Are you telling me that gargantuan of a power supply of the ColecoVision couldn't power that beast? Luckily, the community has found ways to make better power supplies for the thing so you don't need the printer anymore. Coleco's idea was to make the ColecoVision survive the video game crash, and it kinda did. Out of all the other stuff that was not selling too well, the ColecoVision was doing okay for the most part, and now that they didn't have any competition to worry about because the Intellivision and the Odyssey 2 were gone, and Lord knows Atari wasn't doing well, they decided to release a computer that worked with the ColecoVision. You could get it standalone or as an add-on to the ColecoVision. And just as soon as they started leaving the shelves, they started coming back. One store even said out of the 6 Adams that they sold, 5 of them came back, and they figured the only reason the 6th one isn't back yet is because nobody opened it yet. It got so bad that Coleco had to get the company Honeywell to help them with the repairs of the Adam. It was estimated that more than 10% of the Coleco Adams had come back to get repaired. And that's just what Coleco said, so you know that had to be a lie. The most famous thing that the Coleco Adam did, even the ones that worked, was when you turned the computer on, it would make an electromagnetic interference near the tape drive, which means if you had a tape inserted in the Adam, it would erase it! Like imagine turning on your PS2 and it erases your memory cards because you left them in the PS2. That's a scary thought, and so is she. But the funny thing about the Adam was it wasn't just one simple thing that was broken on them all the time, like capacitors or a bad drive or something like that. Everything broke on these things. You name it, the Adam probably had one that was broken. I mean, everything on this thing would break at some point. This thing was so rushed out, and they had nobody test the thing before it was released. They didn't send out any review copies. They just shoved it out there. They did claim that there was a gigantic delay in sales because they had to work on something to do with the printer. Man, can you imagine how bad the printer must have been for them to fix that with everything else wrong with it? What did it do, explode? I guess not, because Ralph Wiggum wouldn't be here today learning. Is there one redeemable thing about the Coleco Adam, you ask? Well, it has a composite video port. The ColecoVision does not have that. So if you want composite video on your ColecoVision, not just get it AV modded or get that flashback thing. Hey, maybe Atari will bring us a Coleco Adam or a ColecoVision at some point. But they better give us a fucking cartridge slot, because I won't say it again. I want a cartridge slot. How do you expect me to play my Cabbage Patch Kids cartridge without one?
Just emulate it on your PC.
Shut up! Also, you can tell this is one of my videos because of the fact that the new console that got announced that I'm worried about is the fucking Intellivision. So if you're wondering why I didn't talk about that certain other console that's coming out, it wasn't announced when I made this video! And well, that's it. That's everything. That's Working Man Games, the Broken Consoles episode. Welcome to 2026, everybody. Can I pull y'all aside for a moment? I know it's been a long time since the last time I made a video. A lot has happened since then. Some people have disappeared from my life. Some have passed away. And I almost did, but I won't get into that. My mental state went up and down. I got put in a nut house. I had a lot of things taken away from me. And I fought to get it all back. And I did. So much stuff has happened to me just in this past year. I'm surprised I haven't been in one of those lolcow documentaries or some crap. And a lot of people weren't fan of the live streams, so a lot of people, well, left. And the algorithm forgot about me, not that it knew me anyway. But 2026 is gonna be different. More videos are coming out. I'm not quitting the live streams. We're doing both. I'm gonna bear down on YouTube. But I'm only gonna make stuff when I feel like it. I'm no longer doing schedules. I'm not forcing myself to try to make this a business or any crap like that. I make videos when I want to, and I don't make them for a revenue. I don't make them for a sponsor. I don't make them for anything but you, and to a lesser extent me, because this is what I do. When I was a young kid, little bitty single digit age guy, probably about 3 or 4, I remember saying, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a cartoon. Well, who's laughing now? I'm Stuart K Reilly, and if you've never heard of me, I'm Stuart K Reilly, and I'm the working man, and I'm a real person. That's more than I can say about a lot of YouTube. See y'all.